We'll have the participants joining here itself, right, Seema?
Yes, that's right. Just give us a minute. I've just started the live streaming. Let's see.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. Just give us a few minutes. We'll begin as soon as more people join in. Thank you, Anant, for making time for this.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk about the relevance or not of all that one has done in the past. So yeah, more than happy to come and have this chat. This is a fairly interesting topic for me as well. When we initially spoke about the big fat MBA and what it means, I was a little conflicted kya bolna chahiye, because I'm obviously somebody who's using the benefits of that degree in whatever it is that I'm doing, but upon reflection, do I really feel that was required? Would I do it differently now with all the options that are available, which weren't at the time?
So let's start a little bit about who you are and what you do right now, Anant, and then let's take it from there about, where did you go to B-School and how did you decide that you wanted to do an MBA?
So I can sort of bring this up as a story, right? If we have about five to 10 minutes,
please go ahead.
So I always thought of myself as a perennial misfit, whether it was in school, whether it was in undergrad, where I did bachelor's in finance and investment analysis from Delhi University. And from that, even while I was doing my undergrad, I was like, chalo ye kar rahe hain, just because I don't know anything better to do. What next? Just get placed by the on campus. Was lucky enough to find a job in consulting. Did what was right in front of me, which were some assignments. Moved to the Big Four soon after. Again, did the same old stuff there, and that's when I had this realization that, look, I don't want to spend my life working in PPTs, Excel sheets, recommending and consulting people when I don't know anything about what it is to consult, what it is like to run a business, to really make things happen. And that's where I shifted away from consulting. One of the big reasons where I'd actually decided and what tipped me over the line to put in my papers, and I was working with Ernst & Young at the time, was a rejection, in fact, from ISB Hyderabad.
Okay.
So I'd applied to ISB Hyderabad twice. And yeah, I know I'm going into an introduction as well. I happen to be an MBA from ISB Hyderabad class of 2014. But I'd applied to be a part of the class of 2013. And I didn't get through. And one of the reasons where I felt I was lacking was purely on account of the fact that being in consulting, and again, I had this inherent imposter syndrome to say that I'm just doing something that I'm not good at. What is the value that I'm bringing to my clients, to my colleagues? I wasn't sure, and that translated into a rejection from ISB. And that's when I knew that, boss, whatever it is that I do, I want to build some kind of skill set. So at that time, I wasn't sure what that skill set would be. So I simply went with what was an interest area, which was photography at the time. So I took a break, invested in a 3-month professional photography course from the London School of Photography, just purely a certification, right? And at the time, I thought that, kya hoga? This does not have the merit of a bachelor's degree in fine arts, photography, any of that stuff. And I realized that just purely by going on that path, it opened up so many more doors for me than a job at an Ernst & Young couldn't at the time for me. Started working with people in different disciplines, documentary photography in particular, worked in that space, realized that, okay, now I kind of know what the direction in which I want my life to go, still not specific. Now let's reapply to ISB, because you still need to make your financial aspirations come to life.
So between your college and your MBA, what was the gap? Was it 5 years?
It was a total of about 5 years, yeah.
Okay. So fresh out of college, and you did what? BCom, economics?
BFIA, but yeah, it's similar to a BBS.
Okay. And you graduated from there, went straight into a job, got placed from the campus, and then also in that 5 years managed to hold a consulting job, which eventually you realized you didn't really like. I'm just recapping for the benefit of the people
Yes.
who joined. And then you said that you went to took a break, and two things that in sort of
After 4 years, after 4 years of working in the consulting space, took a break.
so essentially you didn't like consulting. B, you didn't know where you were going. C, you got rejected from ISB. So you wanted to do some sort of
Something
rethink.
different, anything different.
Okay. Okay. But then the break period was also the period where you actually sat down and prepared for ISB, is it?
I
Or
prepared for, no, not really my ISB. I think with the application, I think, and that was not in the first round of applications that happened for ISB. I think it was in the second batch, where I also had a clearer picture of what I want to do with an MBA, instead of just getting an MBA because, boss, there's nothing better to do and I want a better life. So that clarity was there, which was really to say that I want to use my creative outlet in some shape or form to make business sense out of. So that creativity came from the stint in photography. Of course, the business aspect was what I aspired to do using a degree from ISB. Of course, things didn't pan out like I would have envisioned when I applied to ISB and this time got through. But
so
that was the idea.
let's retrack
Yeah.
and talk a little about ISB. And so you actually tried to get into ISB 3 times, and only at your
Twice.
third shot, twice. So the first time you got rejected, and it was the second time. And you spent a lot of time trying to figure out, before you actually got into ISB, you also spent some time trying to think, why did you want to do an MBA?
Yes.
And what was the reason? I mean, financial security, yes, one, but what else did you think that an MBA would bring to the table?
Protection, hedging the career.
Okay.
In all bluntness, it was that. Yeah, I really, unlike a lot of other peers that eventually became peers at ISB, who are engineers or people from very specific disciplines such as professional services, chartered accountancy, fashion design, law. I was a generalist, and as a generalist, you really don't know boss karna kya hai. What is it that will pique your interest? Where can you use your skills? So I just wanted some kind of future security, career security, for which I wanted to apply to ISB. And again, ISB is a great name, great brand name. So I thought, why not apply for that, and let's not settle for anything else.
So tell me, do from what you remember of your classmates, is that the primary reason most people apply for an MBA? Because they feel like if you go to a good branded institution, you have job security, or you have
in a nutshell, yes. In fact, very interestingly, within a month of joining, there was this campaign that the communications team at ISB had created, which is a set of videos from the new folks who were in the batch on why ISB, why did you come here? I think 95% of the responses were brand ISB, right? Everybody wants to do an MBA, but why ISB? Because the brand name sounds great, it looks great. Do we know what exactly we want to do right after? In many cases, we don't. And in majority of the cases, again, people stay in the same line, whether it's the same industry or the same function after an MBA. And I always saw them questioning, why did I have to spend these many lakhs of rupees if I had to be in the same line? Because career prospects don't completely transform once you've gone
even
up.
after an ISB, MBA.
Even after an ISB, absolutely. It doesn't transform unless you are willing to take some significant risks.
Okay. How much effort did you put in to get through that? Was it, of course, it is an expensive MBA, and of course, it's a very, very good brand name. I understand that. But did you have to clear exams? Did you have to sit through interviews? Did you have to do preps? Well, what was the cycle of trying to get a big fat MBA?
I'd say the pre-admission cycle is about, I'd say, a year and a half. I'll count the rejection also as part of that cycle.
Okay.
Because with that rejection, I knew what not to do in the second attempt, which is when I did get through. For For the first one, I'd say about 4 to 5 months, which is typically your preparation for GMAT, your preparation of your application. I didn't go through the whole test prep drill, which was, preparing for interviews, hiring a consultant or an agency to write your essays and whatnot. But yeah, I think typically I'd say about 3 to 4 months of that time. Once the rejection does come in, after that, again, you start, I won't say at a 0, but at least at a 30, and then begin again from there. So fortunately, my GMAT scores were decent the first time around, so I could still use them the second time. So that time investment didn't go, but I think just on working on your applications, getting it vetted, reaching out to alumni who would fine-tune your applications, references, that itself will take for any fresh application at least 3 months.
So it's almost been what should I say, about 8 years since you've graduated?
Yeah, wow, almost 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know, everything that you learned in that 1-year MBA, how much of it do you actually use today?
I'd be stressed to say more than 10%.
And is that because the environment has changed? Is that because work is different from today, from what it was at that time? Or is it just generally that they did bring in a lot of subjects which were probably,
No, I think the core reason why I feel, and this is not just the case with me, I keep talking to a lot of my batchmates, and I think the one thing we all extensively agree on is that पता नहीं सीखा क्या था, apply क्या कर रहे हैं life में. So I think that's something that all of us are on the same page with, and then the reason for that is just the way jobs happen. Your responsibilities are outlined, your KPIs, KRAs, everything is laid out. It's not it's not by the book. And an MBA by nature, by design, is by the book, right? Where the curriculum, the weight of the curriculum, the baggage of all of that, which gets thrown at you, right? In that 1 year, it's so extensive and deep that the nimbleness of an MBA to really cater to some trends that come up, right? Today, if we talk about an MBA from whether it's an ISB or an IIM, how deep will they go into, for example, topics such as generative AI? How deep will they go into corporate issues such as moonlighting? You'll probably just, you'll have a webinar or a session about it, but will it be deeply embedded in your curriculum? No, it won't, right? Because they've developed the curriculum through many years, and to just discard that and reinvent that is not an easy, straightforward process. So we couldn't really apply those learnings to work. But yeah, as I said, I think the only takeaway was the fact that, okay, there are other employers who can hire you knowing that ye aadmi bevkoof nahi hai.
Okay. So Anant, if I were to ask you, you've also hired people now at your stage. You've now become a manager of managers. What do you look for in people when you sort of hire them? And I mean, is an MBA a must for you? You work in enterprise sales. You work with partnerships. You work with organizations to bring in business. So how do you sort of, if you were to sit down and say, hire 2 people for your team, what would you look for?
So you look at 2 things, right? And I think this is something that's common for many people who say that we hire for attitude, we train for skills, right? So in essence, I do the same, which is really try and find if that person would have the attitude to succeed in the role that's defined. Now, I'm doing sales, interestingly, for the first time in my life at Harappa. And this is after working for about 14 odd years. To have that opportunity was interesting. And that I think also happened because I did the MBA, which gave me that macro credibility to say that he can at least attempt to do a good job here. But when you're hiring people, I think what you do look at are very specific skills, which is something that by the nature of a general MBA, you will not get, right? So one is that. B is the confidence a person has in deploying those skills at work, right? And that you'll talk to them about their past experiences. If they don't have the experience, which in many cases they don't have. Hired people, for example, who have zilch experience in sales and who are now doing fairly well. I think you look at some personal human characteristics. Are they people? Are they people that you can trust? Are they people who will have a certain level of composure, calmness, and openness when they are interacting with other clients and prospects, and that's essentially sales. If the human aspect is taken care of, and and you feel from their experience, they have that resilience to go through the month end target achievement, all of that cycle, that okay, this person can last. But yeah.
What I wanted to say is that essentially what you're saying is that while an MBA might equip you with some functional skills or some skills that you may sort of, or some frameworks or some tools that academically are important, actually what really matters is how people sort of develop their personal or interpersonal skills, or how they manage to sort of, have maybe better communication skills, better collaboration skills, etc. And that is something that at Harappa we really sort of work hard with, right? And
Absolutely. I wish I genuinely, and I'm not saying this because we're of course a part of a webinar from the Harappa School of Leadership talking maybe somewhere in the background about the AMP. No, but honestly, I wish I had something like this. Even after my MBA, right? MBA was good, as I said, because it just gives a brand credibility. Does it really help me do my job better? I don't necessarily think so. In all honesty, I think something like the construct that I have seen from the AMP, which is more, I would say, the topics are ones that are relevant today. And there's a lot more focus on the human aspect of management, not just strategies and frameworks and concepts, but the human aspect of how do you exhibit those concepts and frameworks at work. That I wish I had. I had to learn this, the hard way by failing, learning, reflecting, growing, and stuff like that. But nobody institutionally taught me that. I wish I had that.
Okay, I have a question that's come up from Nikhil Kalra. Nikhil, I know, is not looking to do the AMP, but he does come on and off on our webinars and has been following us. Nikhil says, is it as advisable for an individual contributor to consider an MBA without getting even a single movement in the entire career of 5 years? I'm not sure what he means by that.
I'm assuming by movement, he means
promotion or maybe changing jobs. And is that what you mean, Nikhil? If that is what you mean, just please put it in the Q&A box.
I'll assume that that's what he meant.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the same organization or maybe at the same level across different organizations. No, I think two things to consider. If with what you've mentioned, you want to do some kind of a degree to get that promotion, right? What is the expectation required? Yes. Okay. All right. So what is the expectation that people...
He's added and he says no promotion.
Yeah.
So interesting. So maybe then it's not, I mean, it could be a mix of maybe skills or maybe how you deal with people, right? And maybe I'll let you answer and take this forward.
Yeah, no, I won't necessarily recommend an MBA unless that's been very categorically been called out by your reporting manager or the HR to say that, look, this is a hindrance because of which we don't feel confident enough in promoting you. Right? If it's not been called out, I don't think that's the reason that's holding you back. Right? What I possibly would recommend is then some kind of training perhaps on how are you articulating the work that you're doing to your bosses, to the larger organization. How are your relations with your immediate supervisor? Stakeholder management is a big piece. Your boss's boss, do you have decent relations with them? Do you feel confident enough about your work to just be absolutely candid and say that, listen, I've worked on this project, I've worked on this in this role for the past 3 years. I feel I deserve a promotion. I deserve to move ahead. And if that's not happening here, then I may want to move out. But if you don't have the confidence, right, in the first place, to have those conversations, then maybe that confidence is something you need to work on. And that can be through communication skills, that can be through skills around stakeholder management. I don't know, Seema, you want to add something there?
No, I mean, I was just saying that it's interesting, if you're saying 3 companies and no promotion in 3 companies, then perhaps it's not just a skill issue. It's probably what we were talking about, more that human element, the leadership skills, understanding yourself, understanding your communication skills, understanding your collaboration skills, understanding where you're getting, and sometimes I think those are skills that are, as Anant was saying, we are not taught that in schools and colleges, even at jobs. Nobody actually pulls you out. They'll tell you, oh, your target was not met, and that's the problem. But why was it not met? What was the reason? What is it that you're doing wrong? What can we do to help you? What do you need to think about yourself, and introspect? Where do you need help? So I think that's critical, and I think that's part of the at least in AMP we spend every week in the 6 months that you are with us, we really spend time on helping you to discover yourself and helping you to understand the softer aspects of leadership. And leadership is not always about management. It's not about managing other people. Leadership has many aspects. One of them is communication, understanding what to say, when to say, how to say, who to say. Of course, collaboration, what is your working style? What is your, how do you sort of adapt it to other people? How do you get them to adapt to your style? How do you call out? How do you manage conflicts? How do you resolve? There's so many things, I think many of us assume leadership, we confuse, and maybe Anant, you can, since you go and sell the management program, and you also sell, you also talk about the first time managers program. You know that, right? 90% of the time people confuse management with leadership, and it's not the same. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Confuse management with leadership and confuse it. The worst is when you get confused with a degree. Right. I remember a mistake I made, which my boss at the time had very bluntly corrected me, and I'm grateful to him for that. Right after I passed out of ISB, I joined this place where I was I was a manager for the first time in my life. Right. So my designation was that business manager, but I didn't have any credibility in that industry. It was a new industry for me. It was a new function. As I said, in the past, I was a generalist. So in my signature, in the email, I added business manager, ISB Hyderabad alumni. So that my manager pulled me up saying that, boss, kya pagal ho kya? Is that how you want to, you want people to, see you become a laughing stock, right? And I realized that I genuinely didn't feel that I had any other kind of credibility, whereas I actually did. And when I had that conversation with my manager, he said that, no, when you introduce yourself to people whom you feel you don't have the credibility to showcase, this is what you need to say. But having that open conversation was what helped me, right? Nobody taught me in my MBA that was how are you supposed to write your email signatures, even how are you supposed to introduce yourself. Elevator pitch, I knew that it's supposed to be, that sharp 60-second pitch you make to people. But really, what is it when you're representing a company, practically living it? No, yeah. Again, I've made enough and more mistakes to learn it the hard way.
Okay, we have another interesting question, and this is coming from Abhishek Agarwal, who says, Anant, while you say you don't apply your MBA learning at your workplace, maybe about only 10% of it, that's fine. But can you share how much your MBA from ISB helped you to reach your career goals?
Yeah, interestingly, I think I'm one of the rare MBAs who, my wife was asking me this question. We were on a holiday, on a road trip, ऐसे ही बात कर रहे थे, and she was like, okay, so, where we are in our life, are you where you want to be? Do you think you've achieved what you set out? What are your goals? I actually realized I don't have a career goal. My only goal is that I am doing well with regards to my peers. Now, that's again something that's very open-ended. What I mean by that is, I'm not setting a goal and I would recommend people to not set goals by designation, or to say that by 30 I need to have X bank balance, I need to reach X, this seniority, because those are essentially placeholders with which you will judge yourself. Right? If you're not, let's say, vice president by the age of 32, you will then end up judging yourself. And if you don't achieve that, that will take a serious, it'll create a serious dent on your confidence, and therefore on your interactions with others around you. I think, to come back to the question, Abhishek, that you asked, sorry.
Yeah, he asked you how much of, even though you say that your actual
So what
learning.
it did help me, so how did the MBA help me? I think it just helped me tell people that please trust me, in a nutshell, right? When I had to go and get a job, people knew that, okay, if he's an MBA from this institute, as I said earlier, ye bevkoof to nahi hoga. Right? So just getting that foot in the door with a lot of employers is where it helped me. Did it help me move up, get promoted? Absolutely not. I have had people who are my colleagues, my batchmates from ISB, who are perhaps, some of them are doing amazing. They're actually CEOs. Some of them are not doing very well. Right, where we started at the same level. So an MBA, a degree from a branded institute such as your IIMs and ISBs, is going to help you probably open doors and open conversations with interviewers, but that's pretty much it. Once you're in, the only thing that helps you is how good can you do the task assigned to you. That's about it, right? And with that, how well are you managing people above you, below you, around you? That's it. So people skills, human skills, which an MBA does not teach you. The only thing that an MBA did, not explicitly but implicitly teach me, is the fact that I'm working with my peers, my batchmates. It was a campus program, right? So you build that camaraderie. You're working on projects together, but that's implicit. It's not really the outcome of an MBA. It's not something I get rated upon. So I hope
Yeah,
the
I
question
think,
in some shape and form.
yeah, at no point I think are we saying, or is Anant also suggesting, that if you have a chance at an MBA at a premier institute, you can afford it, you have the time to go and do it. There is no reason why you shouldn't. Of course you should. Because the brand value and the other things that MBA carries, of course, it's the way the world works. Okay, so while we were talking about the big fat MBA, we were also, we also said things are different today. You have many, and maybe in 2014, actually, there were not that many options. In 2022, 23, the pandemic has also changed many things for many of us, and there are different options. So if today you were to sort of, look at a program for yourself or for someone, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would look for in that program before you decide that, hey, I want to do this management program? Management program, I'm not talking about an MBA.
I think first and foremost, I'd like to see what are the kind of concept frame, not even frameworks, but from a pedagogical standpoint, what are the functions and areas that I get to cover in that program? Technology is definitely something that it used to be optional. It used to be something that people can choose to learn or not. I don't think that's an option anymore. So I think some basic foundation in technology and an understanding of that. And I'm saying from somebody who did commerce in school, who always had this fear of not understanding technology. That's something that would be critical. Digital as well. And I think basics of business finance. That's something that is so shockingly lacking in majority of the people who are leading businesses today. If you have a trifecta of these 3 things: business finance, digital, and a basic understanding of technology. And I'm differentiating digital and technology, by the way. They're not the same. Right? Digital can even mean marketing, consumer. Technology is really understanding the infrastructure needed to reach to your consumers. So, but a basic understanding of these 3 things would be required for any program that you're doing.
What do you think about product? Isn't that one of the most important sort of,
It is.
product from taking something from A to B to C to D, and
No, I think it is. I think, yeah, it is. I think product is something that I'd probably say, and again, I'm not sure what the exact construct of it is within AMP. It's something that is actually more about user empathy, right? Essentially, product. How do you develop a product, create it, and see it take different stages? That as well, right? So if you can address user empathy in a different form, sure. But yeah, I think you're right. It does get covered under product. I would love to learn about it.
All right, in the next sessions of product, we are
Inviting me.
rolling.
Yes.
And we get a product taught by the guy who actually put together Naukri.com and then Shadi.com and all of that. So Vibhor is absolutely fantastic. Okay, we have a question here from Indrava. He says he has 9 years of work experience in sales and marketing and has an executive MBA. He says he wants to transition from direct sales to strategy roles. And he says there is recession in the market. So how can HSoL help him to sort of move into a strategy role? That's a tough one. I don't know if you can answer that.
No, I'll take a stab at it. I think, look, I don't think any one institute can tell you that they'll help you get a, ye ho jayega, right? If you do the AMP with HSoL, you'll get a strategy role. I think for you to judge the AMP program by HSoL, I think you'd want to see what are the components of the strategy module. And I know there is one, Seema,
Yeah.
Right? What is the access that you have in dealing closely with the faculty and the team that's put the curriculum together? Because that team is also, I know for a fact, because again, I'm associated with Harappa, is very closely working with a lot of companies and actively trying to see if they can place the people from the AMP cohorts in those roles. So I think the good part is that I think I know Seema's team will also be helping you in making your pitch and your CV, your cover letter, and making sure that it's geared towards the outcome of you taking a strategy role. But I think one fundamental question that Seema's team may ask you is even to say that, boss, strategy hi kyun karna hai? Why do you only want to do strategy, right? Is it something? And, I used to actually say, Indrava, that I want to take up general management roles. Why? A, because general management was a function. B, because it is generic. I genuinely didn't know what else to do. Right. So strategy obviously sounds like something that, sounds good, nice. Is it something, and I'm saying especially because now I've done sales for the past 4 years, where you would be okay not driving the execution of achievement of whether those are revenues or the bottom line costs. Strategy essentially is where you define a strategy, but it's left to the team to do the work. As a salesperson who's done this for 9 years, I'm assuming you would be very hands-on, right? So how do you want to make that transition is something that you should reflect upon, right? And maybe it's not just general strategy, but let's say growth strategy, right? Maybe a role can mean that you're the president of revenue or new channel development. It can mean anything, right? So one way I think where the HSoL program can come in is really, I think, equipping you with the basics of strategy and then helping you create your, I think,
and I think more than that,
to be more suited for those kind of roles. Seema, you can probably add
basically better. Also gives you, I mean, strategy is not something that you do in isolation, right? You've got to understand, as Anant was saying, you've got to understand finance, you've got to understand product, you've got to understand data, you've got to understand marketing, you've got to know all of those things to then be able to sit and make strategy. And you can't make it in isolation.
And I would actually say, of most other people who want to do strategy, Indrava, you'd be better placed on doing this. I can say that because if you have been closest to customers who are paying to make, to get the business running, you are probably best positioned to enter a strategy role. And I think the positioning of your profile can be, I think, worked upon with the HSoL team. And if I was to sort of get somebody in a strategy role, I'd always try and see if they have sales and marketing experience, honestly.
Also, we do spend a lot of our course also is we run a full track, which is the career track, where it's not just about it's about understanding your what you should do next. How do you pivot? How do you prepare yourself for that pivot? And you do have coaching, one-on-one individual coaching from some of the someone from ISP actually, who actually tells you how to think about this through, and how to so you have help at every step of the way to be able to, because making a pivot is a very lonely task, and sometimes people who worked with us or who know us or our family or friends don't really understand how to do it. You need some sort of professional advice and some sort of hand holding in many different ways for you to be able to even plan for that pivot. But I'll leave it at that. Indrava, if you have any other questions, you'd like to know more about the program, please do feel free to sort of reach out, and I'm sure the team will be able to help you.
And there's another question, a fairly interesting one at that. I think in the age of the abundance of information, how can one build rigor similar to an MBA without the standard MBA program? So I think, well, of course, it's easier for me to say that, look, it's self-motivation and how badly do you want it? I think it's really also a question of, are you able to seek value out of all of these touch points, which as part of any curriculum, whether it's from HSoL or any other thing you undertake, do you find resonance of that content in your life, whatever it is that you're trying to do? In many cases, agar MBA kar rahe ho, of course, you'll go through that rigor because you have paid for it. You've left your job. You don't have, for the lack of anything else, you don't have anything else going on in your life, right? Is that something that is healthy? Could be, may not be, if you have certain circumstances where you can't afford to leave a job, for example. Right? I know a lot of my friends, colleagues, they've not done MBAs purely because their circumstances meant that they can't take that 1 or 2 years off the grid of working altogether. So that was a conscious decision. Now, they've still been able to move ahead in their careers. Some of them have been able to do online MBA programs as well. And it came from a place of A, motivation, B, their ability to find content and people who make that journey relevant for them. So I think the advantage of a non-MBA program certification would really be for you to work with that partner in tailor-making those touch points and creating those touch points that work for you, and is not a blanket approach that it's a one-size-fits-all.
Okay, so Anant, I think one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you a little about is you already said that in this thing you noticed that pivots within, even after an MBA from a reputed institute, are not always easy. But if someone does want to pivot, someone does want to think about, say, hey, I don't want to do what I'm doing, like you thought, but you did use an MBA to sort of move out of what you were doing. Well, what else can you do? How else do you think about, and especially if you're coming after you moved into an MBA fairly, like 3 or 4 years of work experience is fine, and then you move into an MBA, that's okay. But if you've done 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and then now you're thinking about an MBA, how do you sort of, prepare for this?
I think one needs to be brave. That's all. It's a very independent decision. You just need to be brave and say that, look, I'll back myself. I'll back my core fundamental skills, right? So if I'm great at sales, as Indrava mentioned, right? If I'm great at sales, there are 2 ways he can look at it, right? He or she, sorry, I'm not sure about the gender with the name, but one is to say that, look, I have done sales, therefore my chances of landing a job in a similar domain are more. So let's apply for more roles in sales and marketing just to have a backup. In building that backup, many a times you're not building what you really want to do. You're not putting enough weight behind it, which can be counterproductive. The other way, which at least I've followed in my life, it's helped me big time, is to say that I'll use some of the skills that I have. If it is skills in Indrava's case, for example, the fundamental skill, human skill in sales is influence and communication. Can I use that influence to build a story around why I ought to fit better in a strategy role? And I'll have to then build that narrative. There is no easy way of doing it, right? But what I'm trying to say is that your communication and influence skills need to be worked on instead of just a general approach of, applying for a sales and marketing job and hoping that it works out.
All right, we have one more question that's coming. This is Komal. Says, I'm a lead engineer doing well in my career growth and promotion wise, but lack of communication skill set, clarity, brevity, assertiveness required for the next level, irrespective of whether I pivot to IC role. I'm not sure what IC roles are.
Individual contributor role, but
okay, or engineering manager role 6 months down the line. How can HSoL help in that?
Okay, I don't know, Komal, if you have a problem of clarity or brevity, because you've clearly aced it in your question. No, I think, okay, I'll try and answer that. It's a very specific role that you've spoken about and the transition that you're looking for. I'm not from the industry and I've not been in those roles, so I don't think I'll be able to do true justice to that. But Seema, since the question is more about how can HSoL help, maybe.
Yeah, so again, I'll go back to the leadership curriculum. And I think one of the things that we really spend time every week is actually helping you to learn how to structure, whether it's structuring your thoughts, whether it's structuring your communication, whether it's structuring your problem solving skills. Those are some of the things that, again, are not really taught in other places, or even at your own managers and your other people at they may say, hey, I don't understand what you're saying, but they will not tell you what you're saying which is wrong or how do you improve that. I think that part of the rigor that we bring in from there, which includes really working with some top-notch sort of communication experts, really sort of going through the curriculum, really having some frameworks and some tools, simple tools that will, once you start using them in practice, you will realize that it helps. So for example, I think, Anant, you must be knowing about PAM, you must be knowing about pyramid, you must be knowing about some of the other things that we really sort of emphasize on. I think that's where we can really help in. Also, the coaching sessions that you get as part of your career track will also help you to understand how to position yourself for the next sort of, leap, or the next role that you really want to pitch yourself for. That's where we come in. Plus, again, you have an engineering background, and normally when you are moving into a promotion or you want to do, move a little bit above, you will need a broader point of view of what the other things in your particular company, business, as they say, are all about. So whether it's understanding a little bit of marketing, whether it's understanding a little bit of economics, whether it's so all of that is where, when Pramath sort of designed AMP, and Pramath, by the way, was the founding dean of ISB as well, and he was the one who sort of made sure, went from like the traditional 2-year MBA to a 1-year MBA, and now has the AMP program, where it's really about the very bare minimum basics that you need to be able to then do the next and the next thing. It's really also a lot of focus on you as a person, and so how do you grow in the next 6 months to be able to do better in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years that comes. Happy to again set up a conversation with someone if you want to talk through, want to understand the curriculum a little bit more, and then have a chat.
I'll probably just add as well. I think, Komal, to your point, since you mentioned that right, that you feel that you lack communication skill set, right, required for the next level. I don't necessarily think it's a case of communication. I think it's also a case of confidence. And I'm saying that because I remember a few years back, I used to tell people that, listen, I'm an introvert. And they would, just shove me away saying that you're pagal ho kya? You're not an introvert. And I felt that about me. So I think it was really a case of confidence. I don't think it was a case of being an introvert or an extrovert. I did not have the confidence in myself. So if you feel that you're not assertive enough, for example, right, I think it comes from a place where you want to feel confident about asking for that next career growth, whatever that may be. Something like an AMP and being around the kind of people who are working with you on this program, I think can help build that confidence. At least it's helped me in my 2.5 years of working with people like Seema. So, yeah.
All right. So I'll quickly launch a poll here. If you want to know about the AMP, want us to reach out to you, please do answer. And even if it's just sending a little bit of information, we'll do that. But any other questions that you may have, we'll happy to answer them. I mean, we're here to see if we can help you in any way. But thank you so much for being a very, very patient audience. And thank you so much, Anant, for taking all of these questions and helping us through with this. I think with that, we're almost at time, and we'll sort of end the webinar here. Oh, there's one more question, Anant. Let me just quickly pick that one up. STOA versus AMP. Okay, I don't think Anant will be able to answer that. You have, I'm sure whoever is asking this question, you have STOA's curriculum and what they do, and you have AMPs. It's really up to you to decide what is it that you want and what is it that where you are focused. We bring certain advantages, and I'm sure STOA brings certain advantages. We are both in the same field, but we both also have things that we do better than each other and things that we do worse than each other. So it's really an individual's decision, and some part of the research of, whether you want to do this or that program also lies on you, because you've got to see what you think makes you more comfortable. I don't know if that's answered your question, but that's really what I would say. I think one or two places where we do better, I think definitely is the faculty and the academic rigor, because that's something that's very, very critical for us. And I'm sure they also have very, very good faculty, but we do bring in someone from Wharton. We do bring in someone who's teaching at Harvard. In fact, our strategy course was taught this time by someone who teaches at King's College. So those are some of the things that, because we are, our founder is part of the higher education network. So we have access to some of a mix of practitioners and academics, and we bring that part, I think, do that very well. We also work on the career track throughout. We don't start after you finish. So those are some of the things that I think we do differently. And I'm sure you can look and see what they do and what works for you, and then reach out if you think this is more interesting.
I have a feeling that the question was asked by somebody from STOA.
No, I think each of our courses have our advantages, and I think that's where at least I stand. I'm quite interested and excited by what kind of work they do. So anyway, I'll end this conversation there then, and thank you so much, everybody. Lovely to have you.